Okay, we've made it to the end of the April business meetings, and thanks for your attendance and participation thus far. You've probably seen me before. My name is Kelly Carew. I'm the Chief Communications Officer for SNOMED International. I'm very happy to still be with you at this point today. And I will bring others to the party right now. So today's session to do a report back on the business meetings that have taken place this week include Rory Davidson and Jim Case from SNOMED International. Just a little bit of context, over the course of the week, we've had about 30 plus meetings from the governance sessions straight through to the advisory, the working the project, the user, and the clinical reference group meetings. And that's what Rory and Jim are going to take us through today, a report back from the chairs of each of these groups in terms of some of the outcomes and achievements that have been reached. Here's just a little bit of a visual look at the meetings themselves that took place for your benefit, for the individuals online. And I will mention that there's a couple of these sessions, because we hold these as hybrid events, that haven't yet taken place. So there's a handful of sessions that are taking place online next week. And so this material will be updated with the report backs from those individual meetings. So I think we're just gonna go right ahead. If I can welcome Rory and Jim up here, they're gonna take you through the reports.
So we are at the end. So the fact that we've got this many people left in the room shows your endurance and constitution to get through these meetings. So these summaries that we did started out a few years ago as the infamous 3-bullet slide summary, where the three major topics that came out of the advisory groups and the CRGs and the program groups were done. And so what I'd like you to do today is kind of take a look at who's the worst violator of the 3-bullet rule. And so I'd actually like to start out by being the first violator by having 4 bullets on my advisory committee. So the editorial advisory group met yesterday for just a 3-hour session. And during that meeting, we approved a project plan that had been proposed at the last working session that we had here to inactivate the navigational hierarchy. We have now finalized a plan on how we're going to get that done with the minimal amount of impact on those countries that have actually used some of the navigational concepts. And we did discover a legacy reason for why they were using them, and it was no fault of theirs. So at least at this point, we don't have to assign any blame for the incorrect use of those terms. It seems that they had migrated from a useful hierarchy to the navigational hierarchy over the course of a map that they had created years ago. So now we have a plan to do that without a major disruption. We've also identified a need to develop a working definition of what's an implantable device in order to appropriately remodel and classify mechanical complications of devices, some of which have an impact on the patient, some of which may not have an impact on the patient. And we've decided that implantable devices almost always have a detrimental effect on the patient. And so we want to make sure that those remain as disorders instead of just findings about a device. The EAG and the Modeling Advisory Group are going to work together to develop a universal definition of what is a sufficient definition of a concept in order to resolve some inconsistencies that we have between the SNOMED editorial guide and the SNOMED glossary. And then we had an extensive discussion on what's the difference in meaning between inspection and exploration in procedures, and how we can appropriately assign these actions in our modeling so that both surgical and non-surgical procedures classify correctly within the terminology. And just quickly to go over a couple other advisory groups, the e-learning group discussed a successful launch of the new SNOMED for CT for Translators learning pathway with potential changes to the implementation course so that it's more modularized and flexible, and member reports on some education activities. SNOMED International implementation support team offerings were also discussed during this implementation tooling meeting. The Modeling Advisory Group met this morning and reviewed and discussed feedback on proposed changes to the column layout in the alternate identifier file, which is going to be an important part of the LOINC and SNOMED agreement, where LOINC codes are going to be assigned for every existing observable. And then in the LOINC extension, SNOMED IDs and LOINC codes will be coexisting. There was a finalization of a long-standing discussion on the approach to annotations with a view to progress those onto the community consultation next to see the impact of those. And then lastly, there was a spirited discussion on role grouping and the effects of role grouping policy on classifications. Turn it over to my co-chair.
I was hoping by coming up second, I just don't say anything, let keep going. So Terminology Release Group, which chaired by Andrew Atkinson, had quite a, well, always has a busy agenda, and unfortunately it always clashes with other things, so I can never get to it. But it's things to talk, as it says on the screen, formalized topics around derivative product release package formats and refined processes in the new world of a new reference set tool. It was raising challenges for us whether we move to monthly releases away from 6 monthly, but I think there's a spirited discussion to not do that. We've disagreed on the agreement on a new distribution method for the IPS terminology product. And one of the big things that we've been talking around that's been talked for a while was moving the international monthly release dates to the first of the month. It's easier to manage the first than it is 31st, 30th, 29th, and 28th. And it also means there's a lot less clashes with national extensions. And so I believe that's been kind of approved with a caveat, which is not on there. So I look forward to finding out what the caveat is. Working groups. Oh, SNOMED on Fire. I'll pick this up. This is Peter Williams and Rob Howsam on Sunday, going through all the fire events that are known to the group. Obviously quite a few around there, so it's good to be aware of what they are. Updates from all members, as well as the European Commission, about what's been done this year, various discussions, including value set maintenance, and everything else you can read on the screen. And then I think obviously an important topic for everybody as we move into a world of more post-coordination. How do we walk through, how do we do that within SNOMED and within FHIR, more importantly? Yeah.
So the Cancer Synoptic Reporting Group, which has always been an active group within the organization here, did report that more than 75% of the cancer protocols that were part of the project have been effectively completed with all the concepts modeled and in the international release. This has been a major project with hundreds and hundreds of codes or new concepts being added to the international release. And I think this group's to be congratulated for the work that they've done. The terminology bindings for protocols, as they have been published by the CAP and the Royal College of Pathology, and some international collaboration on cancer reporting are all being circulated to each of these groups for their quality review. They also discuss the requirements and the next steps for distributed and coded cancer protocols for a number of countries. So you can see that this is definitely a widely distributed international project of great interest. And again, I think this group has done some great work over the last couple of years to making the standardization of cancer synoptic reporting a reality using SNOMED as the core. The drug content analysis project that's going on provided a lessons learned on the activity of assessing the suitability of some national extension clinical drug content for promotion. They're focusing currently on anti-infectives, using that as kind of a prototype for how to evaluate content that exists in national extensions, having it reviewed by a multinational group to determine its international applicability, and then having it promoted to the international release under the auspices and the control of the current drug model that has been developed over the last few years. There was also a report on pilot project testing of the upload of the candidates for promotion to this. So once they're identified, then we have to develop the technical methods to get that content in without having to remodel everything again. And then a review and a discussion about the next area after anti-infectives. And it appears they looked at oral anti-diabetic products as the next set. The Computable Languages Group celebrated the publication of the Practical Guide to Post-Coordination. as most of you know, post-coordination has been a bit of a sticky wicket over the past few years, and having a guide that helps us to develop accurate, reproducible, and equivalent post-coordination concepts is really important. And then designed a way to use LOINC in ECL. The nutrition care process is one of the groups that Kelly mentioned will be meeting virtually next Tuesday. And so people that are interested in that are encouraged to sign in. I'll let you have this one.
That was again on a roll. So managed service group, which is really, it used to be the tooling user advisory group and morphed a couple of years ago into a user group for the managed service members now that we have 13. But also it's an open group, so there's other countries over there to see what's going on. There was a workshop through how we're using ECL, based on real life use cases on how it can, users can leverage that functionality in the tooling, but also in the use of their extensions. We had a great demo about the reference set tooling. There's the new reference set that we are about to open up for testing and hopefully open up to wider use soon, in the next 2-3 months is the plan. And that was a great demo to see how that tool works. And then there were some great demos as well about the applications that all members use and how the new features that are available. And then frequent releases. There's a light in the way. That's what I can see now. Basically, yeah, there's a lot of work's been done between ourselves and the Norwegian NRC on how we do frequent releases. What's the workflow for essentially for extensions? It's a slightly different workflow than it is for the international edition, and so it's a great piece of joint work between the two organizations, but also other managed service members who will be looking to implement something similar. And so we're going to get into a process where we start trialing this further on in the year, and hopefully moving to that as we get towards the end of the year.
So getting in now to the CRGs, which are the clinical side of the application of SNOMED, which of course that's our focus, is to make sure that the clinical needs are met. The first is the dentistry SIG, which has been going on for a long time, is a very productive group. So their general dentistry set, ref set, excuse me, will be revised by evaluating the data that aligns the treatment rationale to the treatment that's provided. And that's one of the key benefits that we get from using SNOMED as a standardized terminology, is the ability to do that type of analysis. There's a desire to develop a ref set for periodontics, where the primary use case in electronic records and for research to correlate between periodontal disease and other common diseases that have inflammatory responses. And as noted here, it's currently an area of substantial dental research worldwide, with an ambitious target of Q4 2023 as a completion date. They also developed a subset of concepts for use in the orthodontic record transfer using DICOM. Submissions will begin next month, so they're still very active. The pathology and laboratory medicine group met this morning, and as it states here, SNOMED and LOINC met together and said everything is copacetic with regards to the agreement that's moving forward. And they're just, in other words, just more or less could say, stay tuned, because this is an active project, and as we learn more, you will learn more. The mental and behavioral health group is piloting a new approach to working on and cleaning up our mental health content. So the content core will be focusing on a small group of specialists with clinical subject matter experts to focus on certain areas of mental health, as opposed to dealing with mental disorders as a whole. We'll be focusing on small subsets of mental health to enable the cleanup of these areas, each one, which can be pretty much treated as a standalone, although nothing in SNOMED is ever standalone. Every time you touch something, something else gets touched. There'll be also a group that is going to be focusing on the modeling core, which we will be running in parallel to the cleanup of the disorders themselves. There'll be a core group that will be developing a content model to apply to the concepts that are already existing, as well as the new concepts that come in as we update the terminology. The group, again, is going to focus on cleaning up of the mental disorders. That area has not been comprehensively reviewed for a number of years as other mental health standards have come out, such as DSM-5. We need to update our terminology in order to reflect any changes that came into that and remove any obsolete terminology that we have. And the mental behavioral CRG group modeling group is going to review existing observable entities and to develop new entities, new observable entities that are going to be relevant to the cleanup of the terminology in the disorders category as well. Another one of the groups that's going to be meeting, another two groups that are going to be meeting next Tuesday are the nursing CRG and the allergy and hypersensitivity and intolerance CRG. And so again, those are all going to be virtual next Tuesday, and they're on the SNOMED events page, so you should be able to access those if you have interest in participating. So with that, we have reviewed what we have available. As you see, it has been an active 3 or 4 days, and if anything on these reviews interested you in an area that you don't normally go to, then I would encourage you at the next meeting to try and schedule so that you could attend those meetings as well. Any other comments, Rory?
Safe travels and thank you.